Hello there, this is OneUpIndie. I just wanted to give you a neat little project to mess around with physics, because you can actually do some really fun stuff. Therefore, I have this playground here, and you have three kind of objects. One is very heavy, so this is a stone. This one is a rubber, and this one is wood. And they kind of bounce and fall differently. And I will just explain in a few seconds how you can actually set that up quite easy, because I saw some tutorials and they were like going through some really theoretical stuff without real application. Like, nah, let's do some fun thing. So here it is. This is OneUpIndie. I am the developer of the indie game Clunky and a programmer / pixel artist. So if you are new here and you want more, consider subscribing to my channel, because I try to upload every day a video and share my stuff, because I think this is definitely a cool thing to mess around. So what are we having in our room? It's not too complicated. First of all, we have these objects. So basically all your physics things are again objects, but, and here comes the big part, you need to enable physics. And here you just set up some parameters if you like. You don't have to, but of course this is a nice start. Here you just say, hey, where your gravity is going. So for example, if your gravity y means downwards, but if you want to have gravity in other directions, well, change the values here. And here you see a strange pixel to meters ratio. It just means how many pixels are kind of translated to meter, because the physics system is a separate beast. It is running kind of side by side with the GameMaker Studio, but it has its own rules, and therefore, well, it updates differently. But I'm not gonna go into those details, because let's do the fun stuff. So here, just play around if you like this. And therefore you have, let's say, gravity of 50. So that doesn't mean it's 50 pixels downwards. No. It's in the ratio of 0.5. So how can we actually use this physics system? First of all, we need to enable it in the room. This is the first thing. And then, for example, we create our first thing, which is a wall. And then, well, basically just took a sprite, say uses physics, mark this guy here. And then this is basically just already our boundaries. And then we have, let's say, for example, a stone ball, and this stone ball is having a collision with another stone ball, a rubber, and the wood ball, and of course the wall. So if you start flagging as physics and you put in an empty collision, because they are empty, there's nothing in there, it just tells GameMaker Studio, hey, those two things have some interaction. And what kind of interaction? Well, you just go under physics, then you find those values which you just set up, and therefore you can actually design how they interact and how they will pan out. And I will just go quickly into the details, because, well, what those values mean, they may be overwhelming at start. At some point you just will just mess around with them, then they will feel natural. So the first thing is density. So if you put it into 0, it means it has the highest density. This thing cannot be moved, and therefore it's perfect to be thing which is unmovable, walls which are restricting you. And then, well, the higher the number goes, so for example our rubber has a value of 1, and therefore it does react differently, and it has a different property concerning collisions. So let's go into the ball here again. Then the next thing is the restitution, but I would call it the bounce factor, because here you just basically decide how much of a bounce you have. So for example, the stone, which is kind of heavy, doesn't have too much bounce, so we do something like this, bam, falling down, no problem. But let's say, for example, we do the rubber, it is bouncing like crazy from all the things, because it has a different restitution value. So this is the one thing. Then the next is collision group, no need for that today. And then those three ones are frictions. Friction is just basically reducing your velocity. So The first one is basically if you are having two instances which are colliding, then, well, you reduce their velocity. So for example, one is hitting the other one, then they both have lesser speed as an end result. Angular damping is, for example, if two instances are hitting as well, but here how good you can rotate. So for example, my wood thing has a higher angular dampening than the stone thing, because here, as you can see, it can turn around, but the wood thing can turn around faster. So here, this is the angular, and here, of course, you can play around with the values. And because of that, well, it doesn't lose its velocity. It can, well, rotate faster. And then the last one, which is friction. This is again a loss of velocity. For example, once something is hitting and going down here, then how fast can it actually go round? Yeah, and this is the basics. And the thing is, for example, you're thinking, okay, so the collision is based on the collision mask of the sprite. And to that I say, yeah, that's completely wrong. Because it's not. For that, there are separate shapes, and you find them under modified collision shape, because you have just three kinds of shapes. So one is box, which you can define here, then circle, which just makes sense because they are balls, and then convex shape, because maybe you want to have a different shape. And here you can actually make your own. But here, for example, once we started, you will see something very curious. So we just put that in, and you're thinking, what the hell is actually happening here? Why is there so much space? Well, because this is your actual shape. This sprite you have as an overlay is just basically cosmetics, which you just put on top of it. So how can you actually check that out? Well, there is a neat thing, and here you can just show it with physics world, and this is a world property. So here, if you didn't want to change your gravity or your pixel to meter ratio, you could say it with pixel world create, and you, well, set it up here. So maybe you want to change your gravity during runtime, because why not? Or you want to get some debug information, and then, for example, here you have different kinds of ones you can put in. We just go for the shape, which we are using here. So physics debug render shape. Start it again. Now you see something curious, because this is the shape. This is my rough diamond, which I'm letting fall down. This is actually the other thing, and the other ones have regular round shapes. That was pretty much it. Mess around with those things. This was just a basic introduction, so you can actually play around and use them. So what is this basically used for? Well, if you are having, let's say, pinball, or if you are doing, let's say, Angry Birds kind of clone thingy where you need to destroy things, this is then for you. That was for today. Have a good one. Wanna Bindi.